93.3 HD3.
A federal force to protect the Capitol. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. That's one of the recommendations in a draft report on upgrading Capitol security.
The report lists 3 options for deploying U.S. troops. Use existing federal law enforcement entities, put them under the command of the D.C. National Guard, or use military police from Guard elements across the U.S. on rotations of 3 to 6 months, or reestablishing a military police battalion who live in or near the city year-round, perpetually on active duty. The draft report says this is needed because the U.S. Capitol Police were understaffed, insufficiently equipped, and poorly trained to protect the Capitol when, quote, violently attacked by a large mob.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon reports the suggestions were made by a task force appointed by House Speaker Pelosi and led by retired U.S. General Russell Honore, who once claimed as many as 40% of the Capitol Police force were what he called Trumpsters. There was no trouble at the Capitol Thursday, as had been suggested as a possibility in intelligence reports provided to Capitol Police. There are new charges. The administration of New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo manipulated data on COVID-19 nursing home deaths to make them appear to be less numerous. The Wall Street Journal says administration officials pressured the state's Department of Health to omit deaths of nursing home patients who died in hospitals. The administration responding.
Senior advisor Beth Garvey writes this: the out-of-facility data was omitted after the Department of Health could not confirm that it had been adequately verified. This did not change the conclusion of the report, which was and is that the March 25th order was not a driver of nursing home infections or fatalities.
Fox's Aisha Hasni, the state's attorney general, has said that nursing home deaths were underreported by as much as 40%. America is listening to Fox News.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
The U.S. Senate has begun its review of the president's coronavirus relief bill, word for word.
Vice President Kamala Harris broke a 50-50 deadlock in the Senate to start debate on a $1.9 trillion COVID relief measure.
The distribution and administration of vaccines licensed under
But debate is delayed. Senate clerks are reading aloud all 628 pages after Wisconsin Republican Ron Johnson objected to a motion to dispense with the reading.
I feel bad for the clerks who are going to have to read it, but it's just important.
Democrats say there should be no delay in passing a relief bill that includes $1,400 stimulus checks for most Americans. Republicans say the bill is loaded with unnecessary spending with little to do with the pandemic. Jared Halpern, Fox News.
President Biden Thursday called to congratulate the NASA team that successfully landed a rover on Mars 2 weeks ago.
You should take such great pride in what you did. We can land a rover on Mars, we can beat a pandemic, and with science, hope, and vision, there's not a damn thing we can't do as a country.
Neighboring Mississippi has dropped its mask mandate, but Governor Kay Ivey is extending Alabama's requirement.
Governor Ivey says she's proud of her state for using masks to keep the spread of COVID-19 down, but the pandemic still exists, and it's her belief
that we need to get past Easter and hopefully allow more Alabamians to get their first shot.
The Alabama mask mandate is extended to April 9th, but after that,
I will not keep the mask order in effect.
Alabama's positive COVID cases have dropped by more than 2,000 since January. Health officials fear a decision to lift most restrictions, as states such as Texas and Mississippi have, could reverse that. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
A homeowner's policy protects much more than just your house. It also protects you against claims from someone being hurt on your property. If a visitor is injured at your place, how much are you covered for? The smart thing to do is get the answer today.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Chili's has the seafood you crave and the flavors you love this Lenten season. Indulge in delicious Lent-friendly soups, salads, appetizers, and entrees. Like our loaded baked potato soup, quesadilla explosion salad, our savory Cajun shrimp pasta, or our mouth-watering grilled ancho salmon. Ask about our black bean burger options, like our tasty mushroom Swiss or old-timer with cheese. This is a limited-time offer, so hurry in and enjoy all the tasty Lent options this Lenten season. We're located on the second floor of Two Monsignors Plaza. At Chili's, savor the moment.
Experience the Take Care difference. Take Care members can count on accessing a high-quality, credentialed network of on-island providers, including the convenient one-stop FHP Health Center and Urgent Care, access to an extensive off-island network of providers, and the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs. You can count on Take Care to deliver comprehensive, accredited insurance coverage and quality health care when and where you need it. Take Care. Our island, your health plan. Learn more at takecareasia.com.
Sunday brunch at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro is back. Come and enjoy Mezcla's true taste of Guam. Open for 2 seatings at 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. $28.95 for adults and $14.95 for kids 5 to 11 years old. Call 479-2652 or 2653 for reservations.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, even tomorrow and Sunday, when I won't have the opportunity to reverently recite the words of that great part of the Constitution. It's still going to be in effect. So I start out with the Second Amendment to the Constitution, spend a fair amount of time during the show talking about the Constitution and what's going on in the news. I start out with something called Zemi Ikotni. Zemi Ikotni is my backwards play on words. Literally translated, it means press the meat, but we turn it around to meet the press. So I take a look at the editorial pages of our 2 local newspapers and try to find an editorial written about Guam. I usually can find one in the Post, but Daily News, not so much. So here's the editorial in today's Daily News. They don't even tell us where it's coming from. It's an unattributed editorial, leading one to believe that it was written by the local staff. We're not that gullible. In COVID-19, as you were in the Wuhan virus vaccination race, no one should be left behind. One of President Joe Biden's favorite Wuhan virus lines works both as a rebuke of his predecessor, of course, and a clear plan of attack against the virus going forth. It's one thing to have the vaccine. It's another thing to get it in people's arms. Truer words never spoken. But the reality is that 6 weeks into Biden's term, even with 3 vaccines now available after emergency approval Saturday of the single-dose Johnson & Johnson shot, it's still another thing to get it in people's arms. The Biden administration, though, has indicated that they are working overtime to find ways to blame this on Donald Trump. More than 50 million Americans have received at least one vaccination. at an average of 1.82 million shots a day in the past week. That's plenty to meet Biden's December pledge of 100 million injections in 100 days, but far short of the 2 to 3 million shots per day needed to reach herd immunity this year. Biden flirted in January with raising the goal to 150 million in 100 days, but backed off. Meanwhile, distribution has been cruelly uneven, cheating many of the people most likely to get sick and die out of a life-saving immunization. This includes older Americans too befuddled by complex sign-up processes. I know what that's like. Let's hear it for Signal. Yeah.
Let's hear it for mayors from Chico.
Yeah. Essential workers too busy to keep refreshing websites for the elusive vaccination shot, and minority and rural communities too inaccessible for distribution. Racial disparities have been jarring. Of course, we got to concentrate on that. The Kaiser Family Foundation data, 40% of California residents who are Hispanic made up more than half the state's Wuhan virus cases and 46% of the deaths. But they have only been 18% of those vaccinated. Excuse me. Black people make up 30% of Maryland's population, 33% of Wuhan virus cases, and 35% of the deaths, but have only been 16% of those vaccinated. By contrast, white residents receive vaccinations at a percentage higher than their proportion of the population in most of the 34 states tracking the data. How could this happen? I know, Jose. Systemic racism. White privilege. What else could it be? Look at what unfolded in Washington when 7,000 vaccinations for people 65 and over were rolled out. 40% were snapped up by the residents of the city's whitest and wealthiest ward that had suffered only 5% of the district's deaths. They should try to not be so white. Experts speculated the disparity was because wealthy residents had more time and were more computer savvy when it came to grabbing online appointments, and Black and Hispanic communities were more skeptical about the vaccine.
So how is that racist?
Well, because they're Black and Hispanic and they're not white. Yeah. Okay, and then, of course, the next sentence begins with the proper word here. An equitable vaccination protocol can be disrupted many other ways. An equitable vaccination protocol. And that's what, of course, this editorial is about. You know, none of this first come, first served, or let's everybody give a chance to get the vaccine. We have to provide equity to BIPOCs, all in the name of not being racist. Okay, typical stuff from the Daily News. No surprise here. And then we go to the Post. And the Post is, I guess, getting ready for the week. Immunizing all frontliners is essential to rebuilding the economy. Yeah. For the past couple of months, as new Wuhan virus cases and hospitalizations have remained in the single digits, more people are venturing out. More businesses are opening their doors. Fewer people are having their heads cut off when they speak to the governor. And the state Surgeon General, Dr. Mike Cruz, said, we are moving forward into a post-Wuhan virus Guam. What that will look like at the end of this road is still uncertain, but we know we have a long road ahead. And in order to reach a place where people can once again interact in a Wuhan-free environment, more people need to be vaccinated. There's also an economy to rebuild. And to accomplish the latter, we have to send assurances to our community, locally, and to our tourism partners abroad that Guam provides more than just beautiful beaches and crystal blue waters. We need to show we have enough people immunized to be able to safeguard the health of any visitors. Now we have a quote here from Dr. Hua Nguyen, who I suspect will be towing the party line this time. We are talking about vaccinating employees at Hotel Row. That's what Gwen said. He said there are several challenges they face and accomplish this, but there's a question of which employees will be vaccinated. The market has been closed for a year, he said. While some hotels were able to maintain some staff accommodations for military personnel, quarantined passengers, or people under isolation, a large number of employees were furloughed. Gwen said another challenge, once they do identify people, is where would they bring Hotel Row employees to get vaccinated? I have an idea here. Why not take the vaccinations to the Hotel Row employees? No, that would never work.
You're making too much sense.
Yeah. This would require a lot of planning, and if the island is hoping to open to tourists by April, that planning needs to get underway. Also, you don't want another situation where people are lined up for hours sitting in traffic or causing traffic congestion. He said the vaccination committee, which meets weekly, will have to be part of this discussion as they determine which group of Guamanians will be added to the list of people who need to be immunized. When asked if grocery store workers and gas station attendants will be among those vaccinated next, considering the number of tourists who don't even stay at hotels but prefer to live in Airbnb rentals, rent cars to drive around and go shopping for food to save money, Gwen said those essential employees are also being considered. And anyhow, the editorial really doesn't say anything at all, so no sense pursuing it any farther.
It didn't even say they'll be prioritized based on hue of the skin.
No.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, well, there's no equity.
There's no equity.
There is no equity here on Guam. We should be ashamed of ourselves. Okay, let's go from there to the card. And I've got program notes here for today. CLTC Chairman Regis is, quote, looking into Haddock Gate at CLTC. Now Haddock may have a role in leasing submerged lands. And then more Haddock Gate today as Joe San Augustine lends his loud voice to the discussion. I introduced a bill.
What would you say back there?
Rory's back, this time with the FBI. Steve Ignacio says he still doesn't know what's cooking at Jerry's kitchen. Yeah, and then turning to the national scene, House Democrats passed a bill I could label Ready Cheat. Bill 1. And I probably get to Sabina and Tello trying to put Ghostbusters out of business. In fact, I'm going to start with that. It's been on the calendar for a long time, and I never get down to it. It's timeless, however. Yeah, so this is an article that actually ran on February 5, KUAM. A home buyer, it's from Nestor Licanto, a home buyer should have the right to know if there are any major defects to the property they're buying. Unlike most states, Guam does not have a seller disclosure law, and a public hearing was held today on a bill by Senator Sabina Paris to require the practice. This is a bill by Sabina Antello. I'm probably going to get in trouble here because I don't have her permission to mention her name. Real Estate Commission Chairman Chris Murphy is in full support of the measure, which he says will provide long overdue consumer protections and level the playing field for home buyers. Purchasing a home is probably the largest investment a person will make during his lifetime, Murphy said. And if you're like many of us, you may not be a real estate expert with the ability to ensure you're getting the best possible deal. In fact, unlike the majority of jurisdictions in the U.S., Guam real estate transactions are based on the concept of caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. Murphy said transactions are sold as is, placing the burden on the buyer, creating in the seller's mind that they're not responsible for acknowledging or fixing any major defects. But fellow real estate commissioner attorney Mars Johnson, a man from Mars, Mars Johnson, says the language of what's required to be disclosed needs to be very specific. I think it would be perhaps wiser if we put together a real estate disclosure law that specifically addresses that sellers should disclose X, Y, and Z things that the legislature has decided are important to be disclosed. And then there's a section on disclosing stigmatized property. Yeah, this is Bill, I forgot the number, but there's a section that requires you to disclose stigmatized property. Johnson zeroed in on that profession, on that provision. And here's how it reads. Or here's what wait a minute. Let me read the section of the statute first. So we have a laundry list of definitions here. And when we get down to K, small letter K, we have stigmatized property. Stigmatized property is property that has been psychologically impacted by an event which occurred or was suspected to have occurred on the property. Such event being one that has no physical impact of any kind, but could potentially be considered a material fact to some buyers, since the stigma of the occurrence may make it psychologically impossible for them to buy the property.
Does it include therapy for the property?
Only if the property really wants to change. Stigmatized factors shall include murder, somebody was murdered in the house, suicide, serious crime including drug activity, proximity to registered sex offenders. Yeah, I'm going to give you a really good price on this house because there's a registered sex offender living next door. Or, yeah, well, I can't really come down on the price. It's a very reasonable price. I really think you'd be well advised to buy it. Next door? Oh, nobody over. Pay no attention to the house next door. Yeah. Okay, now, so murder, suicide, serious crime, including drug activity, proximity to sex offenders, and here are the big two: haunting and other paranormal activities. Yes.
Okay. I'm kind of like on the murder-suicide thing, if it's kind of pronounced. Even the drug thing, because sometimes there's residuals in the walls and, physical things.
Or drug dealers may not know that they
are no longer there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just get a priest.
Haunting, and paranormal activity. So if you live in a house that's been haunted, then you have a duty to tell the buyer, my house was haunted. Or if you suspect, if there's been paranormal effect, we've had a lot of strange things go on in this house, and that's the bill. So Mars Johnson had a comment on it at the hearing. No other state has such a requirement in statute. It's pretty easy to understand why. I believe if Guam legislature were to pass a law requiring sellers of real property or homes to disclose that the house was haunted or disclose other paranormal activity, this would probably be taken up in the news in a bad way and reflect poorly on Guam's real estate community and Guam's legislature. This would be, right up there, would take a lot of pressure off Hank Johnson. You remember Hank Johnson?
No.
The member of the House of Representatives from Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
10 years ago said, if you put more stuff on Guam, won't it tip over? Yeah, that's right up there in that league.
Disclose the instability of the flotation of Guam.
Yes. So, so Tello and Sabina are really cracking down on people who are selling haunted houses without tipping off the buyer that the house was haunted.
Is there a law in Guam that tells you the maximum number of unrelated people living in a house?
I don't think so.
A haunting might diminish that maximum.
Yeah, it might limit the capacity of your house, right? Yeah, so, when I saw this, I was really tempted to send off a sunshine law request. Please provide all public records showing the presence of haunting or other paranormal activity anywhere on Guam. But, if they want to introduce something like this, I guess it's okay. Kind of really tells you what Sabina and Tello think of the people that they represent. They must think we're very superstitious and that we believe in haunting and other paranormal activities. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, Sabina and Tello, you might just hope that no one remembers this come next election.
Who's going to determine the haunting? Are we going to have to hire another kind of inspector?
Well, if the bill became law and there had been a ghost in the house and it wasn't disclosed, then the buyer has certain remedies, like he can rescind, he can collect damages. It's that sort of a deal. Now, how the buyer proves that there was a haunting, these are all rather nasty questions for proof. And that's why on the card, this was listed as Sabina and Tello versus Ghostbusters.
Right.
All right. So we're still not going to be very serious here for a moment. Okay, let's take a short break and we'll come back.
Half a day, this is Honey. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more global markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam, Saipan, and on U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
76 Circle K, the Subaki Tower, and Spa Ayalam bring you another staycation. We are celebrating Mom and all she does. Win a 2-night stay at the luxurious Subaki Tower, get pampered by Spa Ayalam, and enjoy a delicious lunch and dinner at Casa Oceano. All you have to do is purchase $35 or more in 76 fuel and enter to win a staycation fit for a mom. The more you gas, the more chances of winning. Visit 76circlekguam.com or any Circle K location for more information.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, well, we're moving on to the next chapter of Hattick Gate. You'll recall that Jack Hattick III has made quite a name for himself as the administrator of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. First of all, by confessing to perjury at one of the board meetings. Next, fumbling the question of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission and submerged lands but in the process, basically shutting up the Speaker of the Guam legislature, telling her that the agenda didn't include question and answer period. Jack is back now by inference. And this is a story from the Daily News by Steve Limtiaco. A lease for submerged Chamorro Land Trust property in Tamuning should be negotiated by the governor instead of the land trust, according to a bill introduced by Senator Joe San Augustine. The major would remove the land trust from the leasing process. San Augustine's Bill 36 would waive the legal requirements for competitive bidding on land trust leases and allow only GTA Teleguam to lease the submerged land for its $30 million underwater telecommunications cable project. The bill is scheduled for public hearing March 11 by the Committee on Land. It authorizes the governor to negotiate and issue a 21-year lease for submerged land at the Alapong Reef Flat and Channel. The money from the lease would go to the land trust. GTA's proposal to lease 2 submerged sites in Tamuning and Agate was stalled last summer after the Land Trust Board, I think he means the Land Trust Commission, which was receptive to the idea, decided to begin a competitive bidding process as required by the Land Trust law. The Land Trust Commission last May nearly voted on the GTA leases, then decided against it the following month based on legal advice of Land Trust legal counsel Nicholas Toft, who said commercial leases must be competitively bid. The competitive bidding process involves many steps that will take months for the Land Trust to complete, including designating the property available for lease, notifying lawmakers of their ability and waiting at least 60 days before publicly announcing the land is available, and accepting bids from anyone interested in leasing. The Guam Economic Development Authority has agreed with the Land Trust to administer the commercial leasing process and to collect rent on behalf of the Land Trust in exchange for a 10% and 14% of the rent. The Land Trust held 2 public hearings Saturday and Tuesday on proposed resolution to designate all Land Trust submerged land for commercial lease, which is the first step in the process. Speaker Therese Terlahi, whose committee will hear San Augustine's bill next week, participated in Saturday's Land Trust public hearing, stating that the Land Trust needed to give the public more information about its proposal. Land Trust staff during the hearing declined to answer Terlahi's questions about the size and location of Land Trust subject property and about the proposed leases. I think they had a really good reason, though, for not answering the questions. They didn't know. Yeah. GTA Vice President Dan Tydinko last May asked the Commission to conditionally approve a 21-year lease for 24,000 square feet of submerged land on the Alapong Reef Flat and 14,000 in Agate. Those leases would accommodate an underwater trench 10 feet wide, 240 feet long in Tamuning, and 10 feet wide and 1,400 feet long in Agate. This will get the attention of the environmental wackos, that's for sure. At the time, GTA was exploring the possibility of using either site and wanted the leases to take effect only if the project materialized. After debate, commissioners proposed leasing the Tamuning site to GTA for $18,000 a year and the Agate site for $10,500. Commissioners also proposed requiring GTA to provide free phone and internet service, but decided against it after Counsel Toft said it would violate the government procurement regulations. So you would have thought that San Augustine was prompted by the recent activities at the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. That's what I would have hoped. But I hope there will be more legislative activity in light of this still attempt. People are still attempting to swap places in line with the connivance of the executive director, or excuse me, the administrator of the trust. But this bill was obviously introduced before that. But reading this, I have to ask the question that I think is always one that should be asked: cui bono? Who benefits? Who benefits from a bill that says that there don't have to be a competitive bidding process? We'll just sell it to GTA for a particular fixed price. It just doesn't sound good.
Doesn't that last sentence also kind of borderlines the whole bribery thing?
GTA also volunteered to donate a community project to those villages. Yeah, we found out at Hackabotan that you can't give gifts to the government. Yeah. So this whole thing, this Joe San Augustine bill, much as I would like to see important decisions taken away from the Land Trust Commission, this does not look like the solution. Okay, see, we got a break coming up. Yeah, I got somebody online. Let me see who I got here. I got Chris Murphy. All right, maybe Chris Murphy can tell us about the ghosts. So, Chris, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back and talk about the ghosts.
Hey, big news! Now you can listen to The Point on radio.com. And radio.com gives you so much more. Local news stations give you what's going on in your community, yet national news from CBS, CNN, or Fox News Radio. Take a break with one of the hundreds of music, sports, and talk stations. Love podcasts? Radio.com has thousands of true crime, comedy, kids and family podcasts, and more. Listen anytime, anywhere. On your PC, smart speakers, and a variety of connected devices. Or download the Radio.com app now from the App Store or Google Play.
Mezcla Bistro welcomes you this Lenten season with some of your favorite seafood specials, house-made especially for you. Try our fisherman's platter, fish tacos, grilled local catch salad, spicy garlic butter shrimp, candied salmon, and even our creamy lobster padka prau pasta. Don't forget to ask about our Lau Lau Sa Island seafood purse. You will not want to miss this limited time seafood special. Open from Monday through Saturday for lunch and dinner in Agana. Call 479-2652 for reservations. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Okay, so here we are with Chris Murphy, who's going to tell us everything we wanted to know about haunting and paranormal activities and the real estate business. Right, Chris?
Yes, sir, Mr. Bob. How are you today?
Couldn't be better.
Good. I was just driving home today, and I couldn't help myself, so I had to give you a holler and drop in by 5 cents on this, since I'm a proponent of this bill. And I think the fact that people are taking one small piece out of it and focusing on it sort of detracts from the purpose of the entire bill and the importance of the bill. I think if you talk to any realtor on Guam, one, they'll be in favor of a seller disclosure law to, like you said, level the playing field. But two, Hawaii, Guam, there are issues with stigmatized properties. Maybe a lot of people don't come across of it or don't think about it. But I think if you ask any realtor on Guam how many times a buyer has come up to them and asked them, has anyone been murdered or died in this house? Or has this house are there any bodies buried in the ground in this house? Or are there any tautomona? I think you'd be surprised how many times that question is asked by a potential buyer. So the whole purpose of the seller disclosure is to provide a buyer with information that might not necessarily be known by others other than the person who owns the house themselves. And it's not really there to discard or not take advantage of other forms of due diligence like home inspection reports and things like that, but it's there to complement it and help give the buyer, a better idea to make, an informed decision on whether or not they should buy a piece of property.
It sounds right, and I can go along. I know what murder is. I know what suicide is, drug activity, sex offenders. I don't know what haunting is. I subjectively know what it is, but I can't say I can't say that I'm ready to raise my right hand and swear that there is such a thing.
No, but there are people that have come up and say, people believe on Guam. Well, some people, I assume, believe in South Damona, the same kind of things in Hawaii. And the source disclosure is not there per se to say that you have to say that. If you don't know there is none or there is none, then you just don't deal with it. You don't say anything on the disclosure form. But it's just there as another item to give a full complement of potential things that could affect any one potential buyer from buying a house.
Well, let's go back to the beginning here. The bill seems to be a well-constructed bill, and I could see the necessity for it. And, of course, I'd have to add parenthetically that anything that might generate fees for lawyers can't be all bad. But when you have a provision like this in the bill, as you so quickly noticed, it sucks the oxygen out of the rest of the bill. And Mars, I think Mars hit the nail right on the head. This bill is fodder for talk show hosts, humorists, newspaper columnists, did you knows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if this is a real concern, some really important wordsmithing needs to be done on those two phrases, haunting and paranormal activity.
Yeah, and honestly, Bob, it's not an everyday occurrence, and if it were necessary to get the bill through, then I would recommend taking it out. I have no problems with that because the entire notion of the bill is to protect buyers and give them as much information as they want. And if people have a consternation about that, then I don't think that's a big deal to remove it, and then you don't have any issues, moving forward. I have no problems with that.
Yeah.
It's just things that have come up in the past, and you can call your favorite realtor and ask them if it's ever happened. And I'm sure most of them would tell you to some degree it has.
Okay, well, I understand. And again, my suggestion then would be some careful wordsmithing, using words like legend, myth, historical, things like that, instead of haunting.
Yeah, and maybe the selection of words wasn't the right one. I mean, the intention was there, but it was just a little disappointing that, based on the validity and the importance of the bill, that one word, sort of became the focal point.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to work with the senators, and we'll do what we need to do to, get that in shape and move forward with the bill, because I think people will appreciate that, especially first-time buyers and people who don't have the experience of buying and selling real estate, to give them a little more confidence in what they're doing is appropriate.
Okay, well, thanks for calling, Chris, and I wish you the best of luck with that bill. I hope it works out for you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time.
All right. Okay, so maybe the bill would be reworked in such a manner that it would not be necessary to hire Ghostbusters in order to sell your house.
But it was a very profitable bill written for this program.
It was. And I kind of sympathize with what he's saying. It's an important bill. There's really a lot of good stuff in it. But the art of legislative drafting is not for amateurs. So, you have a 10-page bill that's loaded with good provisions in 2 words. Draw your eyeballs to them like it's a magnet. And that's what gets all the attention.
I can't help but hear this when I read that part.
You're right. Okay, so let's move on from there to Carlotta versus the Sunshine Law. And by Carlotta, I mean Carlotta Leon Guerrero. Carlotta is the acting SHPO, State Historical Preservation Officer. Carlotta is one of the hangers-on in the governor's office. I don't know exactly what her official title is. Something to do with military, I think. But I can't remember. It's part of the cabinet.
Liaison?
Something like that. And the SHPO is Patrick Lujan, but Patrick Lujan is off on duty with the Air Guard and is unavailable to handle his duties as the SHPO. So Carlotta is the acting SHPO. Now, the State Historical Preservation Officer, or SHPO, interacts with Joint Forces Marianas with respect to any construction that the Navy or the Air Force is doing here on the island in such a manner as to protect historical artifacts. And in order to do that, there's something called a programmatic agreement, which is negotiated between the SHPO and Joint Forces. And it's pretty interesting. I didn't realize that the military would ever tie itself up as tightly as it does in the programmatic agreement with the government of Guam. I didn't even realize that the military could do that, but that's the way it is. So when it comes to disturbing the ground, the SHPO has an awful lot of authority. So that's what Carlotta does as the acting SHPO. Now, as the acting SHPO, State Historical Preservation Officer, she is an officer of the government of Guam. And that's what this is about. Acting State Historic Preservation Officer Carlotta Leon Guerrero spoke about a recent controversy regarding ancestral remains. Word got out that on November 4th, Carlotta Leon Guerrero, the governor, and various GovGuam and military officials returned ancestral remains to a grave site. This is pretty grave information. Leon Guerrero said the ceremony was solemn and respectful. However, controversy arose because there was no official notice of the ceremony. Leon Guerrero said that her office has since received questions on the matter as well as Freedom of Information Act requests. Now, I got to plead innocent here. I haven't sent one yet. She said that at this time, not all information is releasable. Now, I've worked with the open government law for literally years and years and years and years. I wouldn't say that I know it backwards and forwards, but I'm pretty familiar with it. And I looked through it, and I didn't find reference to the SHPO anywhere in the open government law. I'm sorry, not the open government, the Sunshine Law. I didn't find reference to the SHPO and our Freedom of Information Law, our Sunshine Law. And then Carlotta goes on to say, I think the part that they're splitting the hairs on, that's my job. Everybody knows that every lawyer has a knife so sharp that he can split hairs with it, right? Is that this is a preliminary report. I have a preliminary report on their study. And so I spoke with a reporter and said that I have this preliminary report. As there were this preliminary information, and I released just a little bit of it to her. And so that's why I think I let the cat out of the bag. I didn't find that in the open government law either, but my suspicion is once the cat's out, you can't put the cat back in them. You can't unlisten to something, right? And so that's why I think I let the cat out of the bag by releasing preliminary findings. But I just know how strongly our people feel and are so hungry to find out what is being discovered. So I don't think that there's any harm in releasing this information, Leon Guerrero said. There was an outcry among some in the community who said that the military wasn't being transparent when it comes to archaeological finds. Of course, there'd be an outcry that the military is not being upfront. After Carlotta comes out and says, not all of the information is releasable. Is that what Carlotta said? You know, the military's not being upfront with us on this. But Leon Guerrero said the lack of public notice is born out of natural caution exercised by scientists and academics before they announce their findings. I guess Carlotta must be a scientist, huh? Or maybe she's an academic. Professor Leon Guerrero? She said that it's normal for archaeologists to not go public with their findings until their study is complete. And again, I didn't find anything in the Sunshine Law about archaeologists or academics. She said that's because once they go public, their findings are then subject to scrutiny by the scientific and academic community. Horror of horrors. Maybe even the general public might scrutinize these things. Not all information on, as you were, that is like lighting a match next to a haystack. And so I've been involved in the SHPO long enough to know that archaeologists want to get it nailed down as much as possible, get all their facts down, because they know as soon as they trot out an opinion or an article, they're up for debate and discussion. Well, there's a problem with this. Who do these architects, or who do these archaeologists think they are? Dr. Fauci? And now these remarks are addressed to a burial ceremony that happened on the 4th of November. Now, this is the mental, not having been there and there having been no news coverage at all. This is the mental image I have of what happened on the 4th of November. Someone or something dug a hole in the ground. Maybe with a shovel, maybe with a backhoe, I don't know. Remains were put into the hole. The hole was filled up. Now, do you need an archaeologist to come up with findings on this before? It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. She's got a really great answer for a different question, is what it amounts to. It's like lighting a match next to a haystack. So I've been involved in this SHPO long enough to know that archaeologists want to get it nailed down as much as possible. Get all the facts down. Because they know as soon as they trot out an opinion or an article, they're up for debate and discussion. Carlotta said that GovGuam is moving forward with plans for an ancestral reburial pit. The site is part of our project to reinter the remains of 3,000 people that are currently in GovGuam's possession. So let's go back again to what this story started out about. Word got out that on November 4th, Carlotta Leon Guerrero, the governor, and various GovGuam and military officials returned ancestral remains to a grave site. That's what happened. They put ancestral remains back in the grave site. Leon Guerrero said the ceremony. Now she's told us there was a ceremony. It was solemn and respectful. So on November 4th, the remains were reinterred out there at Camp Las. A ceremony was held. It was solemn and respectful, but nobody was told about it. Okay, and people were angry because they weren't told about it. Because Carlotta says that there has been a lot of questions and even Freedom of Information Act requests about what happened on November 4. Her explanation is, so I've been involved in the SHPO long enough to know that archaeologists want it get it nailed down as much as possible, get all the facts down. Her explanation has absolutely nothing to do with what people are apparently upset about. The answer that they're looking for is this, Carlotta. When you did the reinterment, why didn't you give notice to someone, to everyone? It had nothing to do with archaeologists, haystacks, or anything like that. Well, you know, I've never worked for the governor's office, so I don't really know how this kind of work is done. I've certainly seen a lot of it.
When was it that Carlotta took over the office again?
It was about that time, wasn't
Around
it?
that time?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give it out. I'm just trying to figure out her timeline.
Yeah.
And when this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting that no public ceremony.
So there is a problem, and she's got a very good answer for another problem. It has nothing to do with the problem that Wayne Chargaloff brought to her attention, and Wayne Chargaloff let her get it away. Again, that's 3 now for Wayne Chargaloff, as far as I know. Okay. Next, we've got the Federal Bureau of Investigation versus Rory. Now, Rory has been getting a lot of earned media here, probably since the beginning of this year. Things like giving a program coordinator 2 job to someone who was convicted of official misconduct, some leftover from the Port 7, question after question. And Rory so far seems to have a Teflon jacket, so it seems to always keep bouncing off him, and he keeps coming back for more. This time we got the FBI involved. Late Thursday afternoon, Port Authority General Manager Rory, laying the cards on the table. That sounds like something I would have said. Issuing a press release confirming several of his port police officers are allegedly involved in an illegal gambling matter that currently is the subject of an FBI investigation. We're conducting our own administrative review because this involves a personnel matter. We are unable to comment further at this time. They just can't get over it. Now, if you are conducting an investigation, there is a provision in the in the Sunshine Law that says, okay, you don't have to disclose that. But as far as if that's all you're relying on, the reason you're not disclosing is because you don't want to, Rory. I guess I better download my software, my Sunshine software over the weekend. The announcement from the Port Authority follows confirmation from the Airport Authority in February that there is an ongoing investigation into official misconduct of airport employees. That investigation involves allegations of online and on-duty gambling. Guam International Airport manager John Kinata confirmed one was fired. Through documents obtained from the Civil Service Commission, that individual is Airport Police Officer Jericho Santos. I guess he must have had a horn, huh? Who is appealing his termination. Now, it's interesting. I can't remember who did this, but some knucklehead at the legislature changed the law so that an employee could resign from an agency and appeal his termination. Yeah. Yeah, that's right up there with ghosts and paranormal activity. Those documents obtained from the Civil Service Commission, that individual, according to CSC documents, he admitted that he was involved with online gambling on the job and recruited almost 250 other people, to include other airport officers, Guam firefighters, National Guard members, Superior Court marshals, and Guam Police Department officers. Santos admitted he and his group made an estimated $120,000 or more in cash collectively, and that he would receive $5,000 to $7,000. The CSC documents also indicated that Santos was introduced to the Poker Bros app. Okay, let's come back to the port right after that big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
New claims that COVID death data were manipulated. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Charges that members of Governor Andrew Cuomo's team pressured the New York State Health Department not to include certain patients in the state's COVID-19 nursing home death totals.
Governor Cuomo's administration had a complete picture of nursing home deaths as far back as last summer, but chose not to release that information to the public. The Wall Street Journal reporting that Cuomo's top advisors convinced state health officials to change their reporting on nursing home deaths.
Fox's Aisha Hasni. Governor Cuomo's office responding, the department held back the numbers of nursing home patients who died in the hospital because it couldn't be adequately verified. State lawmakers scheduled to vote Friday to strip the governor of his emergency powers to handle the pandemic. All quiet at the U.S. Capitol Thursday. Reported threats of violence failed to materialize, but Capitol Police still want the added security to remain.
U.S. Capitol Police are requesting members of the National Guard continue providing security for another 2 months, a request being reviewed by the Pentagon. Thousands of troops were deployed to the Capitol following the deadly January 6th riot. Extra barricades and razor wire fencing was installed. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says decisions about extending the Guard's deployment will be made by security officials.
Fox's Jared Halpern, a draft copy of the security recommendations from a task force appointed by the Speaker, suggests the creation of an armed quick reaction force at the Capitol, possibly staffed with a new permanent military police battalion in Washington. How long does it take to read the Senate's version of the president's coronavirus relief plan? More than 9 hours so far, and the Senate clerks are still at it at this hour.
Including during a period of retroactive eligibility under Section 8.
Delaying Senate debate and a vote on the bill could come in the wee hours of Saturday morning. America is listening to Fox News.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
We buy a homeowner's policy and never give it another thought until something happens. Life brings changes, and our coverage needs can change. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
The White House press corps still awaiting the president's first news conference.
As a candidate, Joe Biden once went 89 days without ever holding a formal news conference. Now as president, Biden's at 43 days and counting. President Biden did take about 20 minutes worth of questions on January 25th, including 2 from Fox. He also answers some shouted questions from reporters. But shouted questions are different from a formal news conference with the entire White House press corps. And all of President Biden's most recent predecessors had held one by this point in their presidencies. Former Trump White House press secretary Kayleigh McEnany says it's the campaign all over again. The White House says President Biden is also waiting to deliver his first address to a joint session of Congress until after the American Rescue Plan is passed.
Fox's Kristen Fisher at the White House. Earlier in the week, the Homeland Security Secretary declared there was no crisis at the U.S. southern border, despite a rise in illegal immigration. Now the president has asked senior officials to travel to the border and then brief him on the government's response to the influx of unaccompanied minors and the steps being taken to ensure their care and safety. There are new incentives for employees in the financial sector to be inoculated against the coronavirus.
Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and J.P. Morgan all now have programs to allow workers to get vaccinated and get paid while they do it. Wells Fargo is allowing up to 8 hours of paid time off for folks who book vaccine appointments. The bank says it's up to each employee whether they will get vaccinated, but they are trying to encourage them to do so. Chase, Bank of America, and Citigroup previously offered time off to employees to get vaccinated. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
Worries about interest rates pushing Wall Street lower on Thursday. The Dow lost 346 points, NASDAQ 274, the S&P 500 down 51 points. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
76 Circle K, the Subaki Tower, and Spa Ayalam bring you another staycation. We are celebrating Mom and all she does. Win a 2-night stay at the luxurious Subaki Tower, get pampered by Spa Ayalam, and enjoy a delicious lunch and dinner at Casa Oceano. All you have to do is purchase $35 or more in 76 fuel and enter to win a staycation fit for a mom. The more you gas, the more chances of winning. Visit 76circlekguam.com or any Circle K location for more information.
Subway's got your flavorful, fresh choices this Lenten season. Sink your teeth into the succulent goodness of Subway's shrimp and guacamole spinach wrap, or go plant-based with Subway's crisp on the outside and generously spiced on the inside veggie patty, or enjoy the classic tuna sub, made with 100% wild-caught tuna, all made with freshly baked breads and topped with garden-fresh vegetables. Get them today at any of Subway's convenient locations. Subway, make it what you want.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services.
Okay, here we are after another great halftime show, and I'm back with FBI and Rory. The investigation involves allegations of... Oh, wait a minute. I've got to skip ahead on this here. Yeah, I left off with the CSC documents also indicated that Santos was introduced to Poker Brothers app by Guam police officer Jesse San Nicolas. Chief of Police Stephen Ignacio would not confirm San Nicolas was in the fact under investigation, but did confirm he was informed of an ongoing investigation which prompted him to conduct an administrative investigation involving a single police officer. I can confirm that that investigation that I opened was not in any way, shape, or form, well, he's very definitive, related to what played out at the airport case. Well, what did it relate to then, Chief? Got another article here from the Post. It covers pretty much the same ground. Yeah, so the interesting thing about this story then is I heard this morning on Ray's show that they were talking about this particular matter. And not only is the possibility that people were misusing work time, but there's also a possibility of money laundering here. Oh, we got large sums of money like that, electronic transfers, it's hard to say exactly what. But in any case, I don't think it's very good news for Rory. And it's not very good news for us because the reports here show that over 100 people may be involved in this gambling on during work time undertaking. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense that such a thing can happen and apparently be tolerated. Okay, next item on the card is Steve Ignacio versus Jerry's Restaurant. And the title here is Police Chief Reopens Restaurant Crash Investigation. Off-duty cop was a passenger. Now, you remember what happened here last weekend. Someone was driving apparently south on Marine Corps Drive.
It was Wednesday, the night they opened the bars.
That's right, Wednesday, the night they opened the bars. Somebody's driving south on Marine Corps Drive and took a hard right into Jerry's Chinese restaurant, perhaps not realizing that that in-house dining is permitted now. And of course, when I first heard about this, I said, geez, I hope it's not drive-through Jack. But Jack's pretty careful about choosing his drive-thrus. So it happened, and the police department's approach to this was like, oh yeah, this happens every day. That people drive through the front of a building, smash the front wall of a building and drive right inside the building. There's nothing to see here. There's nothing unusual here. What was the driver's name? That's it. There's nothing unusual here.
It's a personnel matter.
It's a personnel matter. Growing concern has forced the chief of police to reopen the investigation into the incident in which a car plowed through Jerry's kitchen in Tamuning last week. There's concern, and I'm addressing it, said Chief Stephen Ignacio. I think that the concern of the community is the way this accident played out and the time of day it played out. The guy's got a mind like a steel trap. Yeah. The chief said one of his officers, who was off duty at the time, was a passenger inside the Jeep that drove through the glass windows and walls of the restaurant through the dining area on February 24. The case was already closed by the patrol officers that responded. Of course, nothing unusual here.
Nothing to investigate.
Nothing to investigate. It just happens all the time. It just so happened that this driver would rather run into a restaurant than a power pole. It's a lot safer. Yeah. The Guam, as you were, Ignacio confirmed to the Guam Daily Post that he ordered the police officers to investigate the crash again. I don't think the again is necessary. I don't think there was anything that resembled an investigation to begin with. I told them to go over the case one more time and see if there is any surveillance videos in the area to give us a better understanding and a clearer picture of what unfolded on the night of this incident. There has been a lot of community concern regarding the presence of an off-duty officer who was listed as a passenger in the vehicle. Yeah, there's a lot of concern. Like, people are wondering, was she the one who was driving? And are they not telling us the name of the driver because they're covering up for one of the cops? I have a feeling that that's the speculation that's going on. The case is still classified as an auto run-off roadway. The driver, who has not been identified, was given a citation by responding officers. No arrests were made. Why would you arrest somebody?
Nothing to see.
There's nothing to see here. A driver was not administered a sobriety test. How could he possibly have found his way into the restaurant if he'd have been drinking? He would have never been able to accurately aim that car right through that front window. When asked there was no sobriety test, Ignacio said, quote, that's part of what we're looking into. We have to talk to the officer because there are certain things that we look for before we just give a sobriety test. Like maybe a car driving into a building, Chief? You know, this is what, about the fourth time now I've picked on this guy. This is our chief of police. Going back, the first thing he did, he thought someone was trying to steal his motorcycle, so he ordered patrol checks on his house because someone was trying to steal his motorcycle. And I thought, you know, that's kind of special treatment, Chief. I sent a FOIA asking for all of the papers identifying the patrol checks for a 10-day period. He sent me every single log for the whole 10-day period. In other words, a document dump. When he was asked whether Mark Torrey would be coming back to the police department, Mark Torrey, who in open court has admitted that he was so drunk the night a police officer was killed with his own weapon, with Mark Torrey's own weapon, that he couldn't remember what was going on. The chief said, I don't know if he's going to apply, or I don't know. Instead of saying, no, he's not coming back. And now we have a building that rides off the road and runs into a building, and we have to talk to the officer because there are certain things we look for before we just give a sobriety test. You know, like the size of the building, the penetration of the automobile.
Was there a officer off duty as a passenger?
Was there an officer off duty as a passenger? Yeah, if it's a shallow building and there's an off-duty officer in the car, there's probably no need to take a field sobriety test in that case. There are acts to consider that lead up to a sobriety test, and that's based on training. These are National Highway Safety Administration standards for training. So he's just following the standard here. Yeah. I'd like to find the National Highway Safety Administration standards for training for cars that run into Chinese restaurants from a highway. GPD spokesman Sergeant Paul Tabao previously said the crash wasn't DUI related. Now, how did he know that if there was no field sobriety tests? And of course, when it comes to Sergeant Paul Tabao, who's the spokesman for the police department, I heard him on Ray's show a couple mornings ago, and I had to fine-tune my radio a little bit because I thought I had gotten some kind of a station from the past, because it didn't sound like Sergeant Paul Tabao. It sounded like Fred Astaire tap dancing. Or maybe Gene Kelly singing in the rain. What a bobbing and weaving he did to raise questions, you know. The only answer that I could remember that I could repeat sounded like this.
He didn't know the answer, but he could hum a few bars.
Tied in nicely with his musical routine. Yeah. The officer involved in the crash remains on duty. Well, there are two officers involved. Well, no, I guess there was one, right? One involved. Was she involved in the crash? Interesting. And then the chief says, I have no information at this point to believe that there is any administrative or criminal wrongdoing. Mr. Reporter, I see nothing. I hear nothing. I know nothing. Please don't bother me. My name is Schultz. I have no information at this point to believe that there is any administrative or criminal wrongdoing. Wow.
That's why you investigate, sir.
Yeah. We have to go back and re-interview any witnesses that do come forward. How about starting out with the police officer that was in the car? You know, there is a procedure called Garrity. It comes from the U.S. Supreme Court involving a police officer named Garrity. And under that Supreme Court case, you could sit an officer down and ask that officer questions, for instance, about this, and order the officer to answer truthfully. And if the officer doesn't answer, the officer can be fired for insubordination. If the officer does answer and what the officer says is incriminating, then that incriminating statement can't be used in a criminal case because obviously it's involuntary. But it's a tremendous tool for police investigators to use when they're interrogating police officers. It's a whole lot better than, I have no information at this point to believe that there's any administrative or criminal wrongdoing. And I'm not going to try very hard to find any either. I hope you understand. Ignacio could not confirm if the driver and other passengers in the vehicle were relatives, and he said he has yet to speak with the officer involved. Got to give him time to make up his story. I have no information, even from the get-go. This is the best one of all. I have no information, even from the get-go, that there was a cover-up in this crash, which tells you that the cover-up was really successful. I have no information, even from the get-go, that there was a cover-up in this crash. Nobody came up to me and said, Chief, we're going to tell you this, but this is really just part of a cover-up. All right. Okay, let's see what we got. We got somebody in the green room here. It's Frenchie. Good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I was telling Jose that Chief Ignacio is giving Rory a good run for his money as far as the gift that keeps on giving.
Right.
You know, it's amazing. It makes me think about, if you remember back in the early 90s, they had the police academy. A series of movie, all those police cadets, and there was the clueless chief of the academy, and that sounds like Ignacio right now. He knows nothing, you know. It's pretty pathetic, but unfortunately, the guy is also the chief of police. So, a little note on Ghostbusters. I was living in the 80s in San Francisco, actually, when a lot of Hong Kongese were fleeing Hong Kong at a high speed rate to come to the U.S. And find refuge. That was before the handover to China. And there was a lot of real estate purchasing, and the price actually went up quite a bit. And there was a couple of cases of homes that were sold where the buyers who were from Hong Kong actually sued the seller for withholding the fact that they were ghosts in the property. Or so they said, and they actually went to court and won, and even won on appeal in the California State Court. And after that, California started putting all kind of gibberish on their real estate contract when you purchase a house in California. So it's not specifically new to Guam. And I know Guam also has a lot of Asian purchaser of properties, and you know, I'm not surprised that Mr. Murphy said there are a lot of inquiries regarding this. Again, as you say, the devil is in the detail and the choice of words, but that is for sure. But it's an unfortunate thing of the world we live in. So my main question today was about our National Guards that are deployed in D.C. And basically, it is silence radio about what they are doing, where they're at, are they okay? Yesterday there was a big scandal throwing up in D.C. regarding the food poisoning of over 30 National Guard who were served undercooked chicken and felt sick. And we have no idea what's going on regarding our guards that are deployed over there in inclement weather that they are not used to. General Aguigui, no information. Leon Guerrero, no information. Do we have to file a FOIA in order to get any information regarding our guardsmen in D.C. and how long they're going to be deployed over there, or are they on their way back? We know nothing, and the media is not asking any question. It is very disheartening when you see those young people that are giving their time and effort and sometimes their blood for us. So that was a point. And my final point was the Department of Agriculture. I don't know if you put it on your card, but today we were told that the mayors are complaining about the bunny dogs. They're also complaining the fact that the Department of Agriculture right now has only one animal catcher on duty. That's all what they can afford, and we have anywhere from 35 to 60,000 bully dogs running wild on the island. And at the same time, we have an assistant director who is making $75,000 plus benefits there, and he spends his time sitting on the POT Commission, on the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, and not really spending time on agriculture issues. And
but Frenchie, he knows a lot about manure. I remember he brought that up at the Cannabis Commission meeting. What kind of manure you should put on your marijuana? But go on, Frenchie.
Yeah. Well, I guess we have to put our hip boots because so far we are getting a lot of manure, but not much real information. And it really looks to me. That's right. It really sounds like, what you've been talking about all week about we have an administration that is really not forthcoming as far as communication. And the National Guard is a perfect example. The Department of Agriculture is another. Chief Ignacio, the port. Of course, nobody is talking about all the connection between the court martials. You talked about it yesterday about the senator inquiring about his son being under review. It is a carnival of error in the law enforcement, and I happen to know that a lot of the people that are involved in those gambling and other illegal activities are part of the law enforcement community. So what does that mean, and why do we have a chief that keeps on piling up bull on top of his statements to hide what's really going on? I'm afraid we're going to see the feds indicting a bunch of people, and suddenly the governor is going to say, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And frankly, I think they know what's going on, but they are afraid the public is going to find out.
Well, it is an extremely inept administration and an extremely secretive one. Of all of the administrations that I've seen, this one is the hardest to get any information out of. I'll go back just a second here to Carlotta and that burial ceremony on November 4.
Yeah.
The people that would be most interested in this would be the Protege-Latexan crowd, the people that I'm ordinarily quite critical of on the show here, because they're primarily separatists. But putting that aside, they'd have a reasonable grievance. There was no reason whatsoever not to give public notice of that ceremony that they were holding. And then after Carlotta gets caught by opening her mouth, she just dissembles instead of responding to the question. And unfortunately, this kind of performance is, if not encouraged, it's at least tolerated in this administration.
Yeah, it's definitely at every level you see it, and it's very worrisome in that way. Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to correct the most dangerous man in the room, by the way.
Is that possible? Hold on.
And yesterday he bunched Putin with all the other Marxists. Actually, right now Putin is not on the Marxist gift list. You know, he's been the one pushing the return of the Orthodox Church in Russia, and he has been pushing a lot of issues. Actually, the Communist Party of Russia is dead set against him, and they try to have him out of office twice. Not in a very similar way that the Democrats tried to take Trump out. And that story about him having all those palaces everywhere was a typical false information operation run by our own CIA, which has been trying, of course, and it's good. It's a good war to have against somebody that opposes us to destroy that. And I was surprised that Carl didn't see between the lines on this thing. So.
Well, I understand that Putin was interviewed by a reporter in Moscow, and the question was, Mr. Putin, aren't you a communist? And Putin said, no, I'm an oligarch.
Yeah, no, but we can talk about it. It's this Western focus on Putin is almost as unhealthy as the NTD crowd, and the Trump derangement syndrome was really bad, and we have a similar thing going on with Putin, and it doesn't serve the interest of the country, actually, to do so, because it's probably our best ally against Germany.
Well, I'll try to smooth it out with the most dangerous man in the room. He doesn't get called out very often, Frenchie, but I can't think of anybody better to do it than you, so thanks again. Okay, so we got the seventh inning stretch coming up, and I'm going to go from the baseball park straight to the pool.
Listen to The Point. Any speaker, anytime. Check us out on your FM radio at 93.3, 104.3 HD3, thepoint.gu, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and tune in. And announcing radio.com. Download the app and hear The Point. Get the latest news, sports, entertainment, and more.
On demand.
Your phone is digital. Your life is digital. And we are too. 93.3, The Point.
Mezcla Bistro welcomes you this Lenten season with some of your favorite seafood specials, house-made especially for you. Try our fisherman's platter, fish tacos, grilled local catch salad, spicy garlic butter shrimp, candied salmon, and even our creamy lobster padka prau pasta. Don't forget to ask about our Lau Lau Sa Island seafood purse. You will not want to miss this limited-time seafood special, open from Monday through Saturday for lunch and dinner in Agana. Call 479-2652 for reservations. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
So here we are, Wrigley Field, Chicago. No games today. Weather's not quite right for baseball. A little bit cool to jump in the pool, but I think we'll have a pool party anyhow, right, Tom?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Judge. I was listening to Frenchie talk about San Francisco real estate, and I bought and sold 3 homes there in the 80s and 90s and the early 90s, and at that time there was nothing requiring ghost disclosure. I'm sure of that. Now you did have to disclose if there had been, murders or suicides or really even deaths. And I bought a house that someone had died in one of the bedrooms, and they disclosed that to me, and I didn't care. When I sold the house, I had to also disclose that, but not ghosts. And so I checked on Zillow, that real estate site, and they said currently there are no states in the United States that require the sellers to disclose anything about ghosts. So we can set a precedent. If we'll do this, I mean, we can have the pride of ownership of being the first, state or territory to require sellers to disclose that ghost information.
Perhaps a trendsetter, Tom.
I think it'd just be grand.
Yeah, we could really distinguish ourselves from the rest of the country.
All right, Judge. Thank you. I just wanted to add that.
I appreciate that, Tom. Always good talking to you. All right, Dr. Tom Poole, veterinarian. Next item on the card is the Democrat Party versus democracy. Now, I want to just spend a minute here with the word democracy. The Democrats are probably picked a good name for their party, the Democratic Party. Because they throw that word around, anything that doesn't meet favor with them is one of two things. It's either racist or undemocratic. One of the two. So democracy is a combination of a couple of Greek words. Demo means people, and C-R-A-C-Y, the crassy in democracy, means government by. If you have a kleptocracy, you got a government by thieves. If you have a kakistocracy, you have a government by incompetence. Is there such a thing?
That's Democrats? What did you say?
Yeah, back to the Democrats, huh? So that's what democracy means. So in order to find democracy, if you're really talking democracy, you have to find something that looks like a popular vote. The United States was not a democracy when it began. It has never been a democracy, and it's not a democracy now. Because of the structure of the country, it's a republic. So in the beginning, the only national or federal officials that people were able to vote for were members of the House of Representatives. Senators were chosen by state legislators. Presidents, of course, are chosen by electors, not by the people, etc. Judges are chosen by the president with the consent of the legislature. So we didn't start out as a democracy. And if you go back and study up what the founders had in mind, it's for a very good reason. We didn't start out as a democracy. And the Democrat Party would really like to take us in the direction of the United States being a popular democracy. They'd like to do away with the Electoral College. They'd like to do away with the Senate because the Senate is not very democratic. Little Wyoming with 540,000 people has just as many senators as California with, 40 million people, something like that. So they'd like to do away with that, and they would like to have everything go by a majority vote. The idea of the majority rules has a lot of popular appeal. Hey, come on, you guys, let's vote on it, majority rules. But when you have a country as large and diverse, I get to use that word sometimes too, but I'm going to use it in its actual meaning. When you have a country as large and diverse as ours, which means it has several different compositions. It's geographically diverse. It covers a huge amount of territory. There are deserts, mountains, forests, large cities, small towns, etc. And we have a diverse population. We have all different kinds of people in our country with all different kinds of ideas. So how happy would we be, given today's technology, if we could vote in a pure democratic manner on every single question that came up? What if you could just take this and do away with the Senate and the House, and every important question comes up, everybody in the country gets to vote on it?
It would be inequitable.
It sure would. So everybody votes, and of course the votes would be tabulated instantly because it's all digital. And then, there are 330 million people in the country. Even if the vote goes by 10 votes and the people that voted against it are adamantly opposed, we're going to do that anyhow. That's just not a way to run a country. Unless maybe you're talking about some place like Iceland where you don't have that kind of diversity. But the way our system is set up, whatever is decided upon ordinarily comes out as a consensus. Now, the difference between a consensus and majority rules is that in a consensus, some people get something that they may not favor, but that they could live with. In fact, sometimes everybody gets something that they don't favor but can live with. So you don't run the risk of having extremely dissident, disappointed people. That's the strength of our republic and its use of democracy to elect the House of Representatives and senators. The absolute heart of a democracy, any democracy, ours included, is the way that we go about running our elections and choosing the people that represent us. And, of course, if you read the mainstream media, you start out with this proposition. There was no controversy whatsoever. Joe Biden won the election with a clear majority of the votes. There was no voter fraud. There were no irregularities. Donald Trump repeats the big lie, and capitalize big and lie, the big lie that the election was stolen from him. The Republicans have been to court 100 times, and they never prevailed, etc. So the last election that we had was just a peach. And I'm here to tell you that that's just not true. Even if you look at it in a light most favorable to the Democrats, there were all kinds of irregularities. And the last time I checked, 22 cases were decided on the merits, not on a technicality like standing or ripeness, etc. And of 22 cases, 15 were won by Trump or Trump supporters. So the problem with the court cases is you pretty much have to wait till the election's over before you start gathering evidence. And after the election's over, courts are pretty reluctant to get involved. Witness the United States Supreme Court on the Texas case when Texas sued 3 states, presenting what, in my estimation, was a credible theory as to the relief that Texas sought, one that the Supreme Court should have entertained, and if they decided that were not the case, in the way they usually decide questions with well-thought-out opinions, I could have lived with it. I would not have liked it, but I could have lived with it. Instead of doing that, the Supreme Court just dismissed it, even though 2 justices of the Supreme Court said, it's mandatory, we can't, we have to hear it. They just dismissed it. So what we're dealing with here is at least 7 people who have extremely cold feet. And the reason that their feet are so cold is that their predecessors, mixing it up here a little bit, really got burned in 2000. Yeah, what happened in 2000, you'll recall, George Bush won the election with a majority of the votes. He got 5, and Al Gore got 4. 5 is a majority. And the Supreme Court took unmerciful criticism for that, which they should have. And I've been saying ever since that happened that what should have happened was the Supreme Court should have said, we don't have jurisdiction. Read your Constitution. Disputes like this are decided by the U.S. Congress on January 6th, which is exactly what Trump and his supporters attempted to do. But the mainstream media says Trump incited this insurrection to keep the Congress from certifying Biden's election, just the opposite of what was really going on. But they say the same thing. They keep repeating it over and over again, and a lot of folks make their judgments based on headlines, and it becomes acceptable when it really isn't. So what should have happened was, after this election, what should have happened was we should have really, to the extent that the federal government can, and elections are primarily state proceedings, but there is a provision here that does allow the states some entry. What should have happened is we should have had a rule that no mail-in voting, no ballot harvesting. You come to the polls, you vote on a paper ballot, you vote on election day. If you got a really good excuse that you can document, you can vote by absentee, and that's it. And any votes that aren't in the polling place by the end of the day on the election day, you don't count them, because there was so much going on here. And of course, if you read the Texas case, the electors clause says that each state shall decide how its electors are chosen. But in each of the battleground states, other officials made that decision. And of course, they made the decision to open up the election. Now, the political fact is this, that Republicans tend to go to the polls. Democrats tend to want to vote by mail, which doesn't surprise me. So the Democrats are going to favor voting by mail. The Democrats take a common sense provision like having everyone present a picture ID at the time he registers and at the time he votes. A common sense approach to prevent voter fraud. That's voter suppression to the Democrats. Voter suppression. You know, if you have laws like that, a person's probably only going to be able to vote once. That's voter suppression. So the Democrat...
I pay good money for those extra votes.
Yeah. You know, the definition of a good politician is somebody who stays bought. Okay, well, let's head for Churchill Downs, and then we'll head down the home stretch here.
Hoffaday, this is Severina. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more global markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam, Saipan, and on U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com.
Sunday brunch at Mezcla Bistro in Hagåtña is back.
Come and enjoy Mezcla's true taste of Guam.
At only $28.95, enjoy your Sunday with your friends and family with their free-flowing house mimosa or house draft beer. Open for 2 seatings at 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m.
Let Mezcla serve up your favorite local foods. Call them at 479-2652
or 479-2653 to book a reservation. Limited seating available.
Mezcla reminds everyone to be safe and stay sanitized. Sunday brunch at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm going to wind up here with a report on what the House of Representatives did with their Bill 1. On Thursday night, the House of Representatives passed by a vote of 220 to 210 legislation designed to revamp voting procedures on a national level. It's telling that the legislation titled H.R. 1, introduced by Nancy Pelosi-led Democrats in the House, is a power grab dressed up as election reform. The provisions of which are all intended to create more Democrat candidate votes in upcoming elections in order to secure a permanent Democrat Party control of Congress and the White House. Passage of this legislation was their first priority. It is numbered ahead of all other proposals because securing power unto themselves in the form of hegemony over the institutions of government is how Marxists and socialists transform the covenant countries they seek to control. H.R. 1 is a collection of election law reforms meant to dictate to states the manner by which all states shall conduct their elections in the future, mandating certain voting practices be followed while making other voting practices illegal. You can fit the classification into two categories. One, changes in voting processes and procedures that are designed to increase the gross total of votes cast in each election. Two, changes in voting practices and procedures designed to eliminate any effort to improve or protect ballot integrity. Here's a general summary of the key provisions with regard to voting procedures mandated and prohibited. Okay, mandated. First of all, no excuse mail-in voting for all voters in all states. Anybody who wants to mail a vote in, you don't need a reason, you could just do it. 15 days early voting for any election that has federal offices in the ballot. Automatic voter registration, unless the individual opts out, upon the submission of personal information to any state agency for any purpose. That's great. Online registration up to and including on election day. Online registration. Automatic restoration of voting rights to felons. Yeah, that's a good one too. You know, these are matters of state law. You know, one state may want to take he paid his debt to society, why can't he vote? And another state might want to take the position, you know, once you commit a felony, once you've gone to prison, you don't have the rights that everyone in society has. It should be decided at the state level. Counting of illegal aliens among state populations for purposes determining the number of congressional districts in each state. Of course, the Democrats have been getting away with this for quite a while. Public financing by creating, this is really crazy, public financing by creating a $6 to $1 match of federal funds against small donor campaign contributions of $200 or less. So what that means, if this became the law and I sent a campaign contribution of $100 to Donald Trump, the government would add another $600 to it. So Trump would get $700. It just doesn't make any sense at all. Now the prohibitions, what states cannot do. No voter ID requirements. None of this ID requirement. No purging of voter rolls. When somebody dies, you leave him leave him in the voter rolls. You know, he may be dead, but well, it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes. No signature matching for mail-in ballots. Yeah, just free-for-all. No redistricting by legislative bodies in the states, only by nonpartisan commissions. No disqualification of ballots for out-of-precinct voting. Well, what that means is this. If we were to apply it to Guam, let's say I live in Jigo, and I like to vote in Agana because the lines are shorter. So I go down to Agana and somehow I get it. Well, of course, I don't have to show an ID or anything else. I get a ballot and I mark it, and somehow it's discovered that I don't live in Jigo. Don't live in Agana, live in Jigo. My ballot would be void, but not according to the Democrats. They would say only the local elections would be void, the rest would count. Nice setup. Earlier this week, the Supreme Court heard oral argument in cases from Arizona where the Democratic National Committee challenged two Arizona election laws. one that criminalized ballot harvesting, and one that disqualified any ballot cast by a voter in the wrong voting precinct. Similar election laws are used in many states. The decision is expected before June, but the sentiment of legal observers is that justices will uphold both statutes as not violating the Voting Rights Act of 1965. H.R. 1, that is the Democrats' bill, would make both statutes illegal. Every Democrat voted in favor of passage, and every Republican voted against passage. The legislation now goes to the Senate. Because the legislation must get through the Senate under its normal rules, it needs 60 votes to end debate and proceed to vote. Similar legislation was passed by the House in 2019 after the Democrats' control of the House, but it was never considered in the Senate. Okay, I'm getting pretty close to the end here, so I think I better stop and make sure that there's nobody stranded in the green room. Real Joe Cruz, did you spend the night in the green room?
This is an average Joe. Nope.
Yeah, go ahead, another Joe.
We're in a room full of Joes.
Yeah.
All right, so the system is, if I'm hearing you right, the system has been changing, evolving, adapting through the years. I don't know that the senators used to be chosen by the legislature, but no longer.
That's right, 1912. Mm-hmm.
And of course, Democrats prefer to vote by ballot. I don't know if that's a recent, when I say recent, I mean a matter of a few decades as opposed to Republicans voting in person. Now, normally I wouldn't have an issue with that, except that the Democrats have huge entitlement budgets, and everyone in your monkey's uncle, including, gets some kind of entitlement if they vote Democrat. So obviously they have some sort of way of determining that. And so it's going as far as getting people to cross the border, the impression is, and encouraging them to cross the border illegally and anticipating that they will vote Democrat. So that's kind of the issue is, and it's kind of disingenuous thinking that the Democrats want to support a democracy. I think it's a power grab. And so, do they really care about people, or they just care about the power? So that's pretty much my interest, my issue with them. Regards to filling the election, I don't have so much a problem of the outcome as the actual committing of questionable, fraudulent activities with regards to handling of the ballots and all those affidavits, those testimonies, signed testimonies. I think that those people that lied, they should get in trouble. If they tell the truth, I think it should be reported, and it should be transparency. Anyway, that's pretty much my take on it. Uncle Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right, another Joe. I agree with you 100%.
So I just thank you and keep listening. I don't know if there's any few seconds to see what wisdom you have. Thanks.
We're heading down the home stretch, and that was another Joe. So let's see, how much time have I got left, Jose? 1 minute? Yeah. Well, I'll just take a minute here to greet some of the folks on Facebook. I've got Janice Wong and Rico Blancaflor, and a guy who named Anthony who wants to make his mark, also known as Mark Anthony. Pam Duval, one of our regulars, and Catalina Pinola Rios. Dennis Mace. Boy, I wouldn't want to get that guy mad at me. Yeah. Also, if you go to a graduation ceremony out at the university, you'll see a couple people carrying this great big object that looks like sort of like an axe. That is a mace. Yeah, I think it's the one on the back of a dime. Might be a mace. So we got Dennis Mace here. Cool name. Let's see. We've got Mark Voltleen. I haven't seen Mark. Is this Mark's first time, Jose, you think?
No, he's been here a couple of times.
Has he? Yeah, he says he, okay. And let's see. Randy Landis, I recognize that name. Ken Brown, thanks for everything, Bob. Have a good evening. Ken wound it up just exactly right. The last comment in Facebook, just as I hear the faint chords of Ravel's Bolero. So Jose and I are going to tough it out again for 70 hours. We'll be back happy as heck. 1600 on Monday. See you then.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The Senate takes up the coronavirus relief package. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Voting yesterday to begin debate by the slimmest of margins as Vice President Harris had to cast a tie-breaking vote.
The Vice President votes in the affirmative, and the motion to proceed is agreed to.
Then Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer tried to waive the reading of the bill out loud, but Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson objected, forcing Senate clerks to read all 628 pages. They've wrapped that up within the last hour. The Senate will start debate later today. Senator Schumer saying,
"Our mission is to crush the virus now, get our country back to normal."
But Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says it's really a Democrat spending spree.
Democrats are trying to exploit the last chapters of this crisis to pass what President Biden's chief of staff calls, quote, the most progressive domestic legislation in a generation.
A vote on the package expected in the Senate late tonight or early Saturday. There are new charges of data manipulation in New York's reporting of COVID-19 nursing home deaths. The Wall Street Journal reporting Governor Cuomo's staff pressured the state's health department.
The changes Mr. Cuomo's aides and health officials made to the nursing home report reveal that the state possessed a fuller accounting of out-of-facility nursing home deaths as early as the summer of 2020. The health department resisted calls by state and federal lawmakers, media outlets, and others to release the data for another 8 months.
Fox's Aisha Hosni reports the governor's office says some of the data was held back because it hadn't been adequately verified. Police in Burma have opened fire on demonstrators in the city of Mandalay protesting the February 1st military coup. Witnesses and local media report at least one protester has been killed, and there are reports of widespread power shutdowns throughout the country. America is listening to Fox News.